1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to It's Not a Sport, Season 4, Episode 7. I got a good talk for you this week, and before I say anything, I kind of recommend that if you are listening to the show on our podcast platforms, whether that's being Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts, I would recommend that you head to the YouTube channel and watch the VOD of this podcast instead for this episode, because I'm going to be showing a lot of things on screen that I would like people to see and really visualize. It'd be easier to explain, but I'll do my best to explain it for those people who want to listen to audio only. With further ado, quick reminder: leave a like, comment, subscribe. Check out all of our social media links. They're in the description below. And if you want to listen to all of our previous shows, they're archived on the YouTube channel, we're just like I just said. And if you want to listen to our shows or the current shows, they're also all up on those podcast platforms. With further ado, I want to talk about World of Warcraft, because I've been playing a lot of it recently, and this can be a continuation of our Blizzard talk that we had a little bit, because it goes back to what their old philosophy is and old game design. And really, let's start with the current World of Warcraft, which is and I'm gonna talk about this as a new player perspective, because I feel like it's a lot. One of the reasons, as a new player who was very interested in getting into the MMORPG genre, I started in Guild Wars. And Guild Wars is an extremely casual game, if you didn't know. When I started playing, it was OG Guild Wars. Heart of Thorns, the first expansion, hasn't come out yet. It was just on the brisk of being released. There were no raids yet in Guild Wars at all. There's really nothing. All there was PvP, world versus world, and open world content. And all you had to do, really, the only end game goal you had was just grinding for legendaries. It was super casual, super simple. Okay, I leveled every single class to max. I built like the most epic legendary that I could, and I played on my own time. There's no subscription model, anything like that. It's just that you buy it and you just keep going. It's really, really casual. Can't get more casual than Guild Wars, I think. Then from there, I went to Blade and Soul. And this was Blade and Soul was just released, and the reason why I went to Blade and Soul is because it was, again, I think I really liked the combat at the time. You're either doing Blade and Soul or BDO, and I didn't want to pay for BDO, so I went to Blade and Soul, and it was super, super casual. It was pretty easy, but it's Korean, and if you know anything about Koreans, the way they monetize things is really, really bad, really, really heavy RNG. It's to get you to spend money. And I remember just caring about that game so much, but as this time went on, as more stuff got released, the worse it got. A lot of elitism came with the server. Guilds were fighting, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happened with the player base. Soon I eventually joined one of the biggest guilds, and I'm not really a huge social dude, but I wanted the guild because I wanted to do the new raid that just came out, and we weren't able to clear it in like our first 2 runs or something like that, and the guild just died and lapsed, and people went to other higher end guilds, and that was kind of it for me. I didn't have anyone to play. I didn't have anyone to ground me to the game. I didn't feel like grinding. I didn't feel like whaling, and the monetization process of that game just kind of died, and it was super buggy. The servers crashed. It was laggy. It didn't look good. It was a whole bunch of problems with that game, and over time, a game that had potential just died, especially here in the West. It really just died. So where did I go from there? Well, I went to Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy 14 has been pretty much my go-to because it has the great balance of casualty and hardcore. If you want to raid and do salvage content and the hardest content possible, you can find a guild, you can do it. If you want to just be on your own, don't really need a guild, just want to craft, enjoy the story, and go at your own pace, you can do it. And that's kind of and I went kind of in between, and I did kind of almost everything possible in that game. I have almost all of my or all the classes or jobs maxed out. I've grinded for all the relic, almost the relic weapon for the classes that I want to play. I've gone through all the expansions, etc. I've done all the goals that are accomplished in that game. So then what's the next level of, I think, MMORPG in terms of content, in terms of grinding? And I think that would be World of Warcraft. So I tried World of Warcraft, and honestly, I think I came in at the worst time. I came in at BFA, Battle for Azeroth, and I started with that expansion. I was there at launch, played for maybe a month, and then I just quit because I didn't have really anything to do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any friends. The community's so established, it was its 8th expansion, I think, that it's hard for a new player to kind of join in and get into the fun. You don't really know anything about Mythic plus raiding or raiding in general, how it works. There's no story, there's no direction or anything like that. And it was a very, really, really, really overwhelming process, I think. And that leads us to then about Classic came out, and I tried Classic, and it was the complete opposite of anything like that. Again, no direction. It's very slow, it's very difficult, etc., etc. We're going to talk a bit more Classic in a bit, and I just couldn't really get into Classic. Played some more WoW retail at like the very end of the expansion, before probably like 4 or 5 months or a couple so before Shadowlands was announced and then released, and still overwhelmed. Still didn't really like my class. Leveled to Demon Hunter, liked it a little bit more. Still don't really know what to do. Tried to do Mythic plus rating, couldn't really get into it. Didn't know how to get into it. Didn't have a guild or people to really help me out. And again, just leaving super overwhelmed. And I want to start with what I have up on the screen, which is just Wowhead. And Wowhead is kind of the database site for World of Warcraft. And the one that I'm showing right now is the one for retail. And on the screen, and if I just go over classes, it has so many different classes, bosses, and Castle Nethrioth, which I assume is the current raid wing. I just assume that it has so many different guides, covenants, so many guides, soulbinds, so many and legendaries and Torghast professions, so many, and just professions. And the collection, there's so many tabs. And Mythic Plus, there's a lot of guides, and there's a lot of good content here. I'm not saying that's the problem. There's a lot of good content here on how, if you need an answer to something, on how to play your class, on how something works, you can probably find it on Wowhead. However, the problem isn't content. It isn't finding the information. It's being overwhelmed with the information. You want to give players pieces and bits of the puzzle so they can put it together at a time, not the entire puzzle and say, well, good fucking luck, and they need help. And I think now WoW, of course, has other issues, and I've listened to those issues. I've listened to like Asmongold and the interviews that they had with the game direction, and kind of get how the WoW player base feels about their game. And they're very passionate about their game. Same with like me in League of Legends, same exact experience. Everyone's passionate about their game, and I see the problems, and I experienced those problems as a new player for Battle for Azeroth. It was really just boring. There's nothing I didn't know what to work towards, nothing to really do. There's no direction, nothing that I could accomplish. No one really helped me out. And again, going back to this website and all the information it has, you just get overwhelmed with retail, because it is 13 years of content and journey. What's outdated? What's new? What works now? What doesn't work now? What's meta? What's not meta? What, who's this? What content is this? Where do I do this? How do I work towards this? It's very overwhelming. And we get to Classic. And you got to remember, and I think this is why I'm happy to revisit Classic. We look at the Wowhead Classic website, and it is so simple. It has a section for add-ons, for what you want for your add-on. It has a section for best in slot, so you know which gear, class guides, dungeons. There's only a couple dungeons now. It's how to make money, gear, leveling, professions, PvP, raids, reputation, and then the quest. That's all it has. Now, of course, it is a rabbit hole of information, and there's a lot more information the deeper the rabbit hole you go. But it's a lot more, it's less overwhelming. I want to know what, how to level tailoring. It's right here. I want to know how mages work. It's right here. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot direct. And as a new player, it's very, very easy. The only problem is the direction. Now, WoW is just an old school game where it's very simple when it comes to its direction. It's just quest. That's really it. Explore the wars, the goals, get to level 60. That's the journey. When it comes to World of Warcraft, I was leveling a mage, and at first I just couldn't handle it. It was very difficult. Those levels 1 to 22, really. It was just so difficult that it was boring, and I just couldn't get through it. However, that's just been my experience leveling a mage. When I got to level 22 and I knew, okay, you can AoE grind, things kind of pick up. And I realized through the game, it's very simple. You quest. Getting from 1 to 60, that's the journey. If you want to level up a profession, that's good. If you want to do a dungeon, do a dungeon. If you want to talk to people, make friends, make friends. But it's really about your journey as a character. And that's what Final Fantasy has with its story. The story allows you as a player and allows your character to go through that journey. That's what Guild Wars has. Even though you can skip its story, it still has that direction of here's how the game works, here's your journey, congratulations, you're at endgame, good luck. But with World of Warcraft retail, you completely skip that. And you just go straight into the end game almost, and you don't know what happens as a new player. It's really hard, especially with level boosts. I don't think leveling really helps you that much because you're speed running through old content. In Final Fantasy, you don't get to do that. You can level up, but you got to play through a Realm Reborn. You got to play through Heaven's Ward. You have to play through Stormblood. You have to play through Shadowbringers in order to even get close to the latest expansion. And that's a lot of content, but it's a direction. It's a journey. You learn things as you go, and it's the journey of your character. That's it. WoW retail doesn't really have that, I feel like. But in Classic, the journey is 1 through 60, and it's really just that simple. It's a slow, nice, and peaceful grind. Now, with that being said, there are layers on top of layers that even I, as a player, new players, do not understand. However, one of the reasons why I think WoW Classic captures people in a different way, for good and bad, is how the game deals with social interactions and just fulfilling the power creep. Now, in modern gaming, it's probably good to have an LFG. It's good to, at least for certain types of content, they've done a lot of streamlining systems and there's quality of life updates that are in retail that are not in WoW Classic. Those are just things that come with time, come with innovation. However, there's small things that I love about WoW Classic that aren't in retail. For the retail mage, for example, when it comes to food, you just summon food, it just appears there for everyone, and it's just one button. Now, of course, I understand that it's the power fantasy of over expansions. You're supposed to get stronger. That's there in in every game, of course. However, in this game, for example, Featherfall, if you want to use Slowfall, you need the light feather region. If you want to teleport, you need the rune of teleportation region. Small things like those are what brings the game more into the fantasy that a lot of other games don't do, that I think WoW Classic just has, that just makes it fantastic. If we look on the screen right now, and we look at my character, right? Reputation, still in the game. But of course now there's so many different factions in the game now in current WoW that this doesn't really mean anything. And I think it still doesn't mean anything. Like, this is a system that I personally would probably streamline a little bit more. But when we go to skills, leveling up your defense, the more you get hit. Leveling up staffs, leveling up wands, the more you use them. Those type of things I really like. I really enjoy leveling up those skills because it fulfills that fantasy of you can see your power progression. That now my character has more defense because he's got his ass kicked. He's more beefier. Having to have this type of stones in order to cast spells really projects that mage fantasy, of mixing potions. If I want to summon this big monster, I better have the item that requires to summon them, and things like that bring more life into the game. And then once you get to the point and you realize that the journey of the game isn't the questing, isn't the story, whatever it may be, because WoW story is, from what I hear, the writing's, pretty awful. It looks pretty awful. But the story is getting from level 1 to level 60 and getting to those milestones of getting your mount. That's something, it's not overwhelming. It's very simple. 1 to 60. Get to 1 to 60. However way you may want it, do it, leveling up your skills, buying skills, paying money to get skills. Your class trainer is something that I find, of course, very interesting, and I like it a lot, actually, where if you want to get more powerful, you gotta spend money, and then we'll teach you. We're teaching you the skill. Final Fantasy used to have this, where you had to go on your story quest as your class in order to learn new skills. Now, of course, as time goes on, you kind of streamline those out, as I think you should. But the fact that you have those and you have a story quest for your class to fill that fantasy is really good. It's a good feature. It's a remarkable feature, and I think you should have that. Now, we're kind of at the end of WoW Classic. And the Burning Crusade, I believe we're on pre-patch now. It's for the Burning Crusade, which is its first big expansion. And I'm looking forward to how will it change the game up, what type of streamline features will they streamline, and what type of things will they not? I think this really comes down to a game design problem of system designs. Is what do you want there to fill the fantasy, and what do you want to streamline things? For example, if we look at I would say probably something like Halo, for example. Let's look at Halo 1 or Halo 3. Halo 3 versus Reach. Okay. In Halo 3, you have so many different types of items. They added the shields, the grav pads that are in there, new weapons, dual wielding, etc. But you can't run, right? That's the mechanic of Halo. No running. You can't sprint. But then we get to Reach, right? And they innovate on that problem. You can't sprint? Well, how about we give you an ability that you can swap out that allows you to sprint for a short period of time. Now, all of a sudden, it changes up the fantasy. It fixes a problem. It's a quality of life issue that now you can sprint. But there's the condition to it that you have to have this ability, but you lose out on other things that, let's say, that Halo 3 had. You can't dual wield in Reach, but there's a different type of weapon in Reach. There's different types of technology. It's quality of life innovation, and it doesn't overwhelm the player. It's simple. Oh, now you can reach. Now we'll fast forward to even modern Halo. Okay, now of course I believe in modern Halo you can just run, because that's the time. That's what gamers expect, is that you can run. But they've innovated the system more with, let's say, new different weapons. Now there's like executions or whatever, and that sort of a deal. We've lost again our inspiration and ability to innovate on games. One of the reasons I actually like League and their class design is that they always innovate on small things, quality of life issues. Samira, for every downside she has amazing upsides in that they're able to take inspiration from Devil May Cry and innovate it into their game and create their own thing. And players are still not overwhelmed. League is, yes, it's an overwhelming game, but it's not overwhelming from, I think, an information standpoint. It's overwhelming from a gameplay standpoint, where it is the more you play, the more you learn how things work. But in WoW, the more you play, I don't think you learn how things work in retail. It's so overwhelmed. It's such an established community of how things work, is that if they want to save WoW for the new players base, I think they need to go back to Classic. I think the level squash, I think if they did that properly, I don't know, I haven't played Shadowlands. I don't intend to play Shadowlands with how things go and how the community feels about it. Maybe that helped. But it's a very interesting design problem, and I think it's something that we need to understand. There's certain expectations when you play a game, and there's certain things that need to be innovated. And one of the reasons why I think the MMORPG genre is dying, why a lot of people don't like it as much as it used to be, is because it's not innovative enough. It adds too many quality of life features that in the long run may hurt it than help it. It's not trying anything new or trying to replace those old systems with a new system, where instead of, okay, there's multiple items to summon to make me, teleport and summon, and that fills the sort of fantasy. So let's dial it back. And instead of having multiple different types of items, we just have one item. That's quality of life update, but it also doesn't completely get rid of that old system like they do in classic retail. And you have to craft that item, but it's super easy to craft, of course. But let's say like you have to craft it or buy it from a merchant or something like that. It's something more I would like to see from designers as a whole. With further ado, that's going to conclude this week's talk. I hope you enjoyed it. It's something that I really like, just playing Classic. I really just like kind of these old time game design things that just aren't there anymore, and I wish were there in some shape or form, and not feeling so super overwhelmed. I think this is why like Fortnite and games like Call of Duty are so successful, is because they innovate on their formula that's already there, and when they require quality of life updates, they already do it. So with that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed this week's talk. Let's get into the news happening right now. I hope you enjoyed this week's main topic of World of Warcraft Classic and my experience with it. I'm really excited for the Burning Crusade, which I believe dropped today. So make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and you can check out our full shows in the description or the comment section below. So with further ado, let's talk about some news. And we actually have some interesting news, starting with Knockout City. And if you don't know what Knockout City is, it's a really fun dodgeball oriented or designed video game that dropped recently, and they made it free for your first 25 ranks. And this game's really fun, and honestly one of those games that I think was free to play would be more successful, but you can check it out for the first 25 ranks if you didn't check out the beta when it was around. So definitely go check out Knockout City, because it's actually surprisingly fun. Moving on, we have Ashes of Creations. I believe game director is leaving, which is really sad, because one, this game's not even out yet, and two, this is the big game that people are looking forward to, especially the MMO players. So the game director leaving early is never a good sign. And then we have Call of Duty. Modern Warfare narrative design and director finally leaves Infinity Ward. So no more, well, someone else is taking on the mantle of crazy, cool Call of Duty storylines, if there are any. I wouldn't be surprised if this dude left. He's just like, the Call of Duty isn't really known for its story anymore. So moving on to a better studio is probably the best move for him. We had Dying Light 2 Stay Human trailer come out. So some cool little Dying Light news that came out over the course of the week. A little bit of tidbits of gaming news, not a whole lot, but we did see some cool gameplay news between this and her Horizon. I keep calling it Zero Dawn, but the second Horizon Zero Dawn, which is, I believe, Horizon Dawn Forbidden West is what the game's called from PlayStation, but we also saw gameplay from them. Dragon Quest celebrates its 35th anniversary, and the games were on sale for a minute in case you missed them. But Dragon Quest, 35 years old, which is pretty big. It's a classic RPG franchise, of one that I haven't experienced yet, but it's definitely on my list of things to play. And then, which you'll kind of see a sort of theme going on here, BioShock 4 is rumored to development to shift to Unreal Engine 5. And then we have Dragon Quest 12, The Flames of Fate will use Unreal Engine 5. The story is already ready. And then, of course, to the main topic and probably the biggest news that came out this week is Unreal Engine 5 is now available in early access. That's right. For all of us developers out there, we can now finally get our hands on Unreal Engine 5 and check it out. And they actually have some really kind of cool things about it. There's an entire video here, entire store article explaining it. You can find it just by searching Unreal Engine 5. Not too hard to find. They talk about open world. They talk about animations and how you can do rigging in the actual program and animations in the program. They talk about how some sound things are made. They talk about workflow and how it's easier to import packages and just things in the program and the new UI. It's a lot of I think quality of life updates to the engine overall. Now I do want to talk about this, and I think this is probably in a whole episode in itself for new developers, for old developers like me. Which do you prefer versus Unreal versus Unity? And it comes down to, I think, what you're trying to do really, and then what are your preferences. If you like scripting, if you like really like holding, like how I explained it to my father is that one is you're starting a fire with a lighter. All right, so you have your wood and your leaves and you're starting the fire and you have a lighter, and that's Unreal. Unreal does a lot of behind the scenes things for you already. It makes things a lot probably easier to get into. However, if you want to get down to the base of it and start the fire with, a flint and steel or a stick and a rock, that's more Unity. In Unity, you have to really start things from the ground up and really add on to it. It doesn't do a lot of things for you already. So that's a good short way of explaining it. But anyway, the big news is Unreal Engine 5 is out. I'm not going to do the early access right now, even though it's tempting. I kind of want to wait for the full thing to come out before I really jump in and start learning things, because who knows what they'll change in the future. With that, moving on, a little bit of Pokemon news. We got some covers for Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond remakes, which are the remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pokemon Pearl for the Switch. And then we also got the Pokemon Legends box art, which is like their RPG Pokemon or something like that. So some really cool Pokemon news. Everyone likes Pokemon. And with that, we get to go into esports. for everyone who's here for esports. We start, of course, right off with Overwatch League, and we have Shanghai Dragons in first, followed by Houston Outlaws, and then Dallas Fuel, San Francisco, Florida, and then Los Angeles Gladiators and Seoul Dynasty are both tied for 6th, and then Philadelphia Fusion and Chengdu Hunters are both tied for 8th. And then in 10th, we have Washington Justice, then Atlanta, then Toronto, then Hangzhou Spark, then Boston Uprising, then New York Excelsior, then Paris, then Guangzhou Chargers, then Vancouver, then Los Angeles Valiants, and then finally, in last place, we have London Spitfires. So that is the Overwatch League. With League of Legends, we actually have LCS starting up June 4th, which is a couple days. I believe maybe Friday. That's when that league starts up. And remember, yes, Friday. And remember, everything carries over standing wise, which means all the teams who are in their current standings are still in their current standings, and we'll get to that in a second. But for the games that you can suspect to see on Friday, we will have Team Liquid versus TSM first, followed by Evil Genius versus Dignitas, Golden Guardians versus C9, 100 Thieves versus Immortals, FlyQuest versus Counterlogic Gaming, and that will conclude Friday. For the standings, again, currently in LCS, we have Cloud9 in first, followed by 100 Thieves and Team Liquid tied for second. We have Dignitas and 100, or my bad, TSM and Team Liquid tied for second. You know, I both see trash, so they just kind of blend in. And then we have Dignitas and 100 Thieves tied for fourth, and we have Evil Genius is second, Immortal 7th, 8th is FlyQuest, 9th is CLG, and then 10th is Golden Guardians, which honestly, I don't like the fact that these rankings carry over, because it's how does Golden Guardians come back from 3 wins and 15 losses over the course of summer split? It's going to be extremely difficult to catch up to, you know, the top 3 teams. But anyway, with that being said, there's also been some roster moves, I believe, especially within 100 Thieves roster. There's been some switches, so we can expect to see some rosters and new faces coming into the LCS for summer split as well. Going on to Valorant, starting from round 2 Masters, because they are playing a lot of games actually were on during the week of Masters tournament. Starting from upper bracket round 2, we have Team Vikings versus Sentinels. Sentinels won. We have version 1 versus New Turn Gaming. New Turn Gaming won. They moved forward into upper bracket finals, and then we have New Turn Gaming versus Sentinels. Sentinels won, and they moved forward into finals. In lower bracket round 2, we had X10 Esports versus Fnatic. Fnatic won. We had Kuru Esports versus Team Liquid. Team Liquid won. We had Team Liquid versus Team Vikings. Team Liquid won. And we had Fnatic versus version 1. Fnatic won. And we had Fnatic versus Team Liquid. Fnatic won. And in the lower bracket finals, we have Fnatic versus New Turn Gaming. Fnatic won, and then Fnatic and Sentinels went off in the finals, where they got 3-0'd by Sentinels. Congratulations, Sentinels, to winning the first ever, I believe, Valorant Masters tournament. So that's some really good and cool news. So to wrap up the show, of course, let's start with June game releases. And oh boy, some of the big ones are today, actually, this Tuesday on June 1st. And we have World of Warcraft, the Burning Crusade Classic gets released, which I mentioned earlier. So that's a huge one. And then the other big one is the Elder Scrolls Online Gates of Oblivion also got released on Stadia and PC. That's another huge one. We also have Wreckfest, Pro Cycling Manager 2021, Tour de France 2021, and Evergate, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contract 2, The Last Kid on Earth and the Staff of Doom, The Presidents, those are all come out this week between now and Friday. And then next week we will have probably, I think, the official release of the Elder Scrolls Online for the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and the Gate of Oblivion for PS4 and Xbox One, which is probably the official release of the expansion. I believe today was probably early access like they like to do. And then later on in the month we will have Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, which is, I believe, the Yuffie DLC for Final Fantasy VII Remake. We have Ninja Gaiden Master Collection will also come out. We have a Guilty Gear game that comes out. We have Olympic Games in Tokyo 2020, the official video game, come out. We have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 come out for the Switch. And Mario Golf Super Rush comes out for the Switch as well, June 25th. And then probably you can suspect to see some big announcements from E3 and gaming conventions, since they are in June, and this is generally when we will start to see big announcements from big companies. With further ado, that's going to conclude this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the talk. Always love talking and having these conversations with you guys. Quick reminder, as always, make sure you leave a like, follow, and subscribe. You can find all of our links to our past shows in the description below in our YouTube, as well as all of our social media. It's Not Sports to You, our Twitter, and Not Sports to You, our Instagram, and our TikTok, where we post previews and things of the latest shows. You can also listen to our show if you want to listen to the podcast version of our show instead of watching it on YouTube. You can find this on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. The most recent shows for the most recent season that we're on go up on there. So definitely check those out if you haven't already. This has been your host, Salty Waffles, signing off. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful climb.